Pete had always dreamed of becoming a soldier. His career was going uphill. New ranks, promotions, a stable salary. After getting his own house in the suburbs of Atlanta, he and Nina decided that she would stay at home. "Why do you work?" said Pete. "I am a man. My task is to provide for the family, and yours is to create comfort, raise Ken." Years passed. Ken grew up, and Nina did everything to be the perfect wife. Every day she prepared complex recipes, baked pies and desserts, kept the house in impeccable condition. She also took care of herself, regularly visited a fitness club, a beautician, bought the best cosmetics. Pete often disappeared on business trips, but on weekends the family always spent time together. They went to Disneyland, to the beaches of Florida, or just went to the mountains. Once a year there was always a family vacation at sea. Life seemed perfect. One evening, Pete came home tired. He refused to eat dinner, just sat down on the couch and said, "Nina, we need to talk." These words made her cold inside. "I'm leaving. I'll continue to provide for Ken, but I love someone else. You don't deserve to be deceived." Nina froze as if paralyzed, and then, as if under hypnosis, she fell to her knees, grabbed his hands and begged, "Don't leave us. We're lost without you." Pete silently picked her up, but then went out the door. Everything that belonged to him remained in the house. He went to another woman, Jenny, who was raising his son. Pete came to Ken regularly, helped with homework, went to his football games, gave him money. It was very difficult for Nina. She fell into depression, but had to learn to live anew. She found a job at a local bakery, where she gradually began to feel a taste for life. One day, Pete came to their house to pick up Ken for training. "We have new furniture," Nina said, looking at him. "And I have a new life," he answered shortly. For a long time, Nina did not think about men, but one day she shared with her sister Linda. "There is this man. He is from our area. Not bad, although he is married and has 2 children. He says he is ready to give up everything for me." "And is it easy for you?" Linda replied. "And Ken?" "And those children?" Nina decided to leave everything as it was. When Ken got married, Pete organized the wedding. A granddaughter was born, and Grandpa often visited the children. Nina lived alone. Once, when Grandpa returned from his granddaughter, he stopped by Nina's with a cake. "How are you?" he asked, his eyes downcast. "I'm fine," she answered shortly. He talked about Ken, his daughter-in-law, and his granddaughter, but he seemed very depressed. Nina remembered that moment and said to her sister, "He kept looking at the floor. Something must have happened." "Why didn't you ask?" Linda asked. "Who am I to him? He has someone to go to." The next time Nina heard from Pete, her son called her. "Mom, Dad's dead." She went to the funeral, where she saw for the first time the house Pete had traded their lives for. It was an old trailer in a remote village in Georgia. One of Pete's friends had said to Nina, "We all wondered why he left you. You know, a lot of people thought he was crazy. He wanted to come back to you, but he was afraid, and he didn't have the conscience to leave that woman and her son." Nina stood aside in silence. She knew she had loved Pete all her life. In the car, Ken, wiping away tears, said, "Mom, Dad always told me to take care of you. She's the best woman you'll ever meet." "Why didn't you tell me that before?" Nina asked. "I don't know," his son answered quietly. "And why didn't I ask him when he looked so unhappy?" she said to Linda, her voice aching. "You would have asked him now," her sister replied. "But there's no one left now," Nina said quietly. "It's never too late. It's always too late," Linda said and turned to the window. A month had passed since the funeral. Nina often thought of that day and the words Pete had conveyed through his son. She wanted to cry, but the tears had dried up years ago. Life went on, but now it was even more empty. One day, while cleaning out the pantry, she came across an old album. Opening it, she saw photos of their early years together. Young, happy, they were smiling in the pictures. Picnics in the park, trips to New York. Ken was still very young. She stopped at the photo, where she and Pete stood outside their new house, hugging. Back then, they were just starting their life together, full of plans and dreams. Nina ran her fingers over his face in the picture. "Why did you leave?" she whispered softly. Her thoughts kept returning to his last days. How had he felt? Did he regret the way their life had turned out? Nina wanted to find answers, but they were hidden in a past that she could never return to. One evening, returning home from a shift at the bakery, she saw Ken on the porch. He was holding a box in his hands. "What is this?" Nina asked in surprise. "It's from Dad," Ken said. "His lawyer found it among the papers. He said it was for you." Nina opened the box and saw an old postcard. It had a picture of a starry sky on it, and inside was a short text. "Dear Nina, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I want you to know, you've always been my home, even when I've been away. I'm sorry for everything. Pete." Nina closed her eyes, pressing the postcard to her heart. "He loved you, Mom," Ken said quietly. "And I loved him," she replied, swallowing back tears. It was Pete's last gift. The postcard didn't bring him back, but it brought peace to her heart. For the first time in a long time, Nina felt she could forgive and let go. The next morning she woke up with a new feeling. Life went on, and there were grandchildren, friends, and a job at the bakery ahead of her. She wanted to live on, no longer burdened by the past, but with gratitude for the moments of happiness they had once shared together.